heightened. This morning there are reports of sporadic fighting between them, the Russian troops, and Ukrainian forces in various parts of the city as civilians continue to flee en masse. We came across a large number of Ukrainian soldiers this morning manning checkpoints larger than yesterday, I should say. They were all twitchy. They are worried about Russian infiltrators. Speaking from an unknown location in the city, Ukraine's President Zelensky was defiant for his people, angry with the West for not delivering on sanctions, and thus open for the first time to talk about the neutral status of Ukraine outside NATO. Moscow is sticking to its line.
In accordance with obligations to our allies, President Putin decided to conduct a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, so that freed from this oppression, Ukrainians themselves could freely determine their future.
I remain in the capital. My family is also in Ukraine. My children remain in Ukraine.
And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky appealed directly to world leaders to do more, warning that if they fail, tomorrow the war will knock on your door. President Biden has called an urgent meeting of NATO later today to discuss further action, with the West under pressure to cut Russia off from the key global finance system, SWIFT.
Good afternoon then from Kyiv, a city which is truly under siege. Russian forces are rapidly closing in, with reports of tanks and troops in a suburb just a few miles away. Ukraine has been bombarded by Russian airstrikes on cities and military bases for the second day. There have been hundreds of casualties, including civilians. Ukraine's president has urged his countrymen to resist and has called on Moscow to declare a ceasefire. At the centre of the Ukrainian capital, the seat of the country's democratic government, people have been taking shelter in underground stations and basements. Just over half a mile away is the Independence Square, also known as Maidan, which in 2014 saw such violent protests against the pro-Russian government then running Ukraine. And this morning, less than 10 miles north of the city centre, video has emerged from the Obolonsky district of what's believed to be Russian armoured vehicles in the streets. Jonathan Rugman sums it all up.
This was Ukraine's northeastern border last night, and though it was unclear who was bombarding whom, it seems that Russia's advance has not been without a fight. On the outskirts of Kyiv, you can see destroyed Russian military vehicles. Western intelligence suggests some Russian troops have deserted and that over 400 have been killed. The Ukrainians say a downed Russian aircraft hit this apartment block on the outskirts of Kyiv. 8 people were hurt, but remarkably nobody was killed. Ukrainians are now taking photographs, but some 100,000 of their countrymen are believed to have fled in the wake of Russia's advance. Much of the capital seems deserted, with Russian tanks reported to be within 20 miles of it. And Ukraine's president claims Russian special forces have already arrived with the aim of taking over.
I remain in the capital. My family is also in Ukraine. My children remain in Ukraine. My family are not traitors. They are citizens of Ukraine. Where exactly they are, I have no right to say. According to the information we have, the enemy has marked me as target number 1. My family is target number 2. They want to damage Ukraine politically by destroying the head of state.
Audio has emerged which seems to show a Russian warship ordering Ukrainian border guards to surrender on an island in the Black Sea. They radioed back their blunt refusal, and President Zelensky says all 13 of them were then killed in a subsequent bombardment. In Moscow, Russia's foreign minister doubled down on justification for this invasion, telling the leaders of 2 breakaway parts of Ukraine that their pleas for intervention could not be ignored.
In accordance with obligations to our allies, President Putin decided to conduct a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, so that freed from this oppression, Ukrainians themselves could freely determine their future.
This is what that freedom looks like, a downed jet in a suburb of Kyiv. The Ukrainians say their death toll is now over 100, with their president denouncing Western sanctions as too little too late. Ukrainians have been sheltering underground in the capital, forced from their homes by explosions, and many fearing their city is about to fall. I came with my parents and children, says this woman. Unfortunately, my husband and my brother said they didn't want to come, and they stayed at home. Thousands of others have fled to Poland, many here packing small suitcases in the middle of the night. Though there's now an official ban on men aged 18 to 60 from leaving, though nothing may now save their capital from whatever the Russians do next.
Jonathan Wagner reporting. Well, joining me now also from Kyiv is the Ukrainian MP Lesia Vasilenko. Lesia, it's good to speak to you again under these very difficult circumstances. You heard what we just said there. You heard what your president said about possibly talking neutrality with the Russians. Do you back that call, that conversation?
Again, I don't believe our president said about full neutrality with the Russians. I mean, the Russians have to back out and back off from Ukraine. We cannot, in the sense that you're saying now, it seems like as if Ukraine is to go and become a militarily neutral country. No, that's impossible. But I think in order to negotiate anything with Putin and to come to any kind of agreement with him, you would have to be crazy. We've been negotiating for 8 years, and this is what we have now on the streets of Kyiv.